You forget 70% of what you learn within 24 hours. That's not an opinion. That's science. And if you're studying for hours but still blanking on tests, this video is going to change everything. Today you're going to learn exactly how memory works, why your current study habits might be working against you, and the specific strategies that top students use to actually retain information and perform under pressure. Stick around because the last section alone could be the difference between passing and failing your next exam. Section 1. How memory actually works. Here's something most students never learn in school. Your brain doesn't store memories like a filing cabinet. It stores them more like a web. Every new piece of information needs to connect to something you already know, or it simply doesn't stick. Memory works in 3 stages. First, you encode information. That's when you take something in. Second, you store it. Third, you retrieve it. That's when you pull it back out during a test. The problem is, most students only focus on the encoding part. They read, they highlight, they maybe watch a lecture. But encoding alone is weak. Without reinforcing storage and practicing retrieval, that information fades fast. This is where the forgetting curve comes in. A researcher named Hermann Ebbinghaus discovered that without any review, people forget roughly half of new information within an hour, and up to 70% within a day. Within a week, most of it is gone entirely. But here's the good news. Every time you review material, that curve flattens. The forgetting slows down. Your brain treats repeated exposure as a signal that this information is important and worth keeping. So the question isn't just how long you study. It's how strategically you study. And that brings us to the next section, where we talk about what actually makes studying effective. Section 2. Active versus passive studying. Be honest. When you study, what does it usually look like? Rereading your notes? Highlighting? Watching lecture slides again? All of those feel productive. But research consistently shows they're among the least effective study methods out there. Why? Because they're passive. Your brain isn't doing the hard work of actually processing and connecting the material, it's just skimming the surface. Active studying flips that. Instead of reviewing what you already wrote down, you're forcing your brain to produce information on its own. Some of the most powerful active study techniques include the practice testing, elaborative interrogation, and the Feynman technique. Practice testing means quizzing yourself without looking at your notes. Use flashcards, cover your notes and write down everything you remember, or answer practice questions. This is called retrieval practice, and it's one of the most researched and proven memory tools we have. Elaborative interrogation is simpler than it sounds. You just ask yourself why and how questions about the material. Why does this concept work this way? How does this connect to what I already know? This forces deeper thinking. The Feynman technique takes it further. Try explaining a concept out loud as if you're teaching it to someone who knows nothing about it. The moment you hit a point where you can't explain it clearly, that's exactly where your understanding has a gap. Go back and fill it. Active studying takes more mental effort, and that discomfort is actually the point. Your brain grows stronger through challenge. So next time you sit down to study, ask yourself, am I just rereading, or am I actually doing something with this material? Section 3. Spaced repetition and study scheduling. Most students cram. They pull everything into one long session the night before an exam and hope it sticks. And sure, you might pass the test, but 2 weeks later, almost all of it is gone. There's a better way, and it's called spaced repetition. Instead of one massive study session, you spread your studying out over multiple shorter sessions across days or even weeks. Each time you revisit the material with a little time in between, your brain has to work slightly harder to retrieve it, and that effort is what makes the memory stronger and longer lasting. Think of it like working out. One 8-hour gym session won't build muscle, but consistent shorter sessions over time absolutely will. Here's a simple way to apply this. When you learn something new, review it the next day, then review it again 3 days later, then a week later. This schedule takes advantage of the spacing effect and dramatically increases how much you retain over time. Combine spaced repetition with interleaving. That means mixing up different topics or subjects in a single study session instead of doing all of one thing before moving to the next. It feels harder in the moment, but research shows it leads to better long-term retention and helps you apply knowledge more flexibly. The key takeaway here is this: when you study matters almost as much as how you study. Plan ahead, build a schedule, your future self will thank you. Section 4. Understanding your learning environment. Where you study has a bigger impact on your performance than most people realize. Distractions don't just slow you down. They fragment your focus in ways that take up to 23 minutes to fully recover from, according to research from UC Irvine. Your phone is the biggest culprit. Even having it face down on the desk is enough to partially occupy your working memory. Put it in another room if you can. Multitasking is also a myth. Your brain can't truly do two cognitively demanding things at once. What you're actually doing is rapidly switching back and forth, and every switch costs you time and mental energy. The ideal study environment is quiet, consistently used for studying, and free from social media and notifications. Study in the same place regularly, and your brain starts to associate that space with focused work, making it easier to get into the zone. Also think about when you study. Are you a morning person or a night owl? Try to schedule your most mentally demanding study sessions during your natural peak energy hours. Studying biology at 2 a.m. when you're exhausted is going to return very little compared to studying it when your brain is actually functioning. Small environmental tweaks can produce surprisingly large results in how much you actually absorb and retain. Section 5. Test-taking strategies that actually work. You've studied. Now it's test day. Here's how to make sure all that preparation actually shows up in your score. First, manage your anxiety. A little stress before a test is actually helpful. It sharpens focus. But too much shuts your brain down. Deep breathing for even 2 minutes before a test has been shown to lower cortisol levels and improve cognitive performance. Seriously, try it. When you sit down, skim the entire test first. Get the big picture before you start answering. This helps your brain start processing questions in the background, even while you're working on something else. Tackle the questions you know first. This builds confidence, earns you points, and sometimes unlocks memory for the harder questions. Skip what you don't know and come back. For multiple choice, read every option before choosing. Eliminate obviously wrong answers first, and trust your gut when you've genuinely studied. First instincts are often correct. For essays and short answers, outline briefly before you write. Even 30 seconds of planning produces clearer, more complete answers. After the test, review your mistakes, not to feel bad, but to understand your patterns. Are you misreading questions? Guessing on certain topic types? That feedback is gold for your next exam. So here's your recap. Memory needs active reinforcement, not passive review. Active study techniques beat rereading every single time. Space out your sessions, control your environment, and walk into every test with a strategy. This isn't about studying more. It's about studying smarter, and the students who understand that have a real advantage. If this video helped you, hit that like button. It helps more students find this content. Subscribe so you don't miss the next video. And drop a comment below with one thing you're going to change about how you study. I read every single one. You've got this.